Good evening. Welcome to Daddy's still broadcasting. The last time we shot a Scary Stories live stream, was when this whole coronavirus quarantine mess started. And that was about two and a half weeks ago. Um, so, so much has changed since then in just that small period of time. We have learned that Esanam is off school until May. So I've started teaching her a lot of different things at home. And, she spent some of her time with her mommy, some of her time with me, and, just trying to take advantage of that time. I'm also working from home, doing YouTube from home like we've always done, but also working from home. So we've learned a lot of new things. Tonight, we're going to be doing a part of, at least the first half, I think, of Scary Stories 3. More tales to chill your bones. And this is the third tome in the series that we've done so far. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, more Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and Scary Stories 3. And you can see on the cover art, again, the amazing art by Stephen Gamble. Hopefully, oh yeah, we can definitely, almost dropped the MacBook. You can definitely see that beautiful cover art, a triad of demonic, ghostly, ghastly images from Stephen Gamble, depending on how you pronounce it. And this made for the revelries and kind of helped me deal with fear and death as I was a child. And boy, oh boy, and not 5 years old like Esanam, but around, I guess early adolescence, prepubescent to early teenage years, that I really got into these books, and it helped me deal with a lot of different things. I also have my corn juice, my famous Milwaukee corn juice, that may or may not have been made with hops and yeast and other things that men of storytelling fame so revel in. And there you go. So we have, and you know what? I didn't go live last week. I was with Esanam Wednesday night, and I just wanted to rest. It was hard last week, fully, and don't get me wrong, it's not impossible, but it was hard adapting to working full-time at home in a job that requires your full attention, and having a 5-year-old daughter, my absolute boss 5-year-old daughter, who was amazingly patient and understanding with me, and whom I am very proud of. Esanam, you did a great job. I love you, and I'm very proud of you. A great job, Esanam. Fabulously, famously great job. So patient and calm and understanding, but it's hard to adapt to that because you want to give your child your full attention and you want to give your job your full attention. And boy, oh boy, that first week was a little bit of a learning curve as far as stress is concerned. For everything else, we handled it like absolute bosses, but there you go. So the last time we did this, we were just beginning the quarantine. And so much has changed in our personal lives as well. I'll be updating you on that more as a vlog than as a live stream. And I've put out some funny, silly videos in the past couple of weeks. Really just kind of helping, that's my way of coping. And that video, the first video I put out about COVID-19 and people rushing to the supermarkets, I saw a lot of dislikes on that, and that's okay. You are entitled to your opinion, and I really appreciate it. I mean it. Any positive, constructive feedback, even if it could be considered as negative, I really appreciate. One thing I want to make very clear about that video is that I was not trying in any way to belittle or judge anyone. You were getting my raw first reaction, my raw first Asperger's. This is an amazing, incredible surprise to see all these people at the supermarket. That's what you got in that video that I put out. I was not trying to judge anyone or make fun of anyone. It was just extremely surprising to see that, and also extremely surprising to see how calm a lot of the Montrealers that were there are in the face of this fear but also, it was a shame to see the aisles in disarray. 30 to 50 shopping carts just left in the aisles, and I get that. I think that's a lot of people who just gave up. They're like, lines are too long. I ain't messing with this. I'm out of here, and I totally get that too. So yeah, we've been adapting to a lot of stuff. I almost did not go live today, but I wanted to because going live makes me happy, and sharing these scary stories with you guys makes me happy. Just going live in general just makes me happy all around. You'll notice robe, quarantine burp. You'll notice a robe. You'll notice hair a little bit less done than usual. I worked today and I got a rest. Esnam is with her mommy, and Esnam's mommy knows that at any time I'm picking Esnam up on Thursday night, but any time before then, if the need arises, I will be there and I will be happy, and I am ready and present in Esnam to have Esnam here whenever the need may arise. So there you go. Yes, so much has literally changed. Excuse me. It's mind-blowingly incredible to see everything that's going on. I've spent a lot of time at home. I had my first prescription, and I'm learning things. We're learning how to do things differently. I downloaded an app so I can receive calls for free without going over my minutes, because in Canada we're still stuck on an archaic system where you have a certain amount of daytime minutes, and your night and weekend minutes are usually unlimited depending on the plan that you have. But we're still stuck on that archaic daytime minutes schedule regime. So I downloaded an app where I can make free calls since I'm home a lot more often during the day, and hence whether it be for work or other things, I can talk to people now without worrying about going over my minutes and paying a higher cell phone bill. So very thankful for that. For those who are interested, check out the PhoneGo app, Fongo app. Also, I had my first prescription delivered to my house, which was really cool. I take asthma medications, thyroid medication, and also nasal spray, which helps a lot. And that also was the first time I also learned that home delivery with this particular pharmacy is free. So thank you, pharmacy that shall not be named, for delivering to my house those prescriptions during these trying times. So I have been home, for long stints at a time. Fortunately and unfortunately, I have to leave the house for the main reason to pick up Esnam or to drop her off. And that's the same thing for Esnam's mommy. The times where we've agreed that she will drop her off here, those are the only times that I'm trying to leave the house. Try to go out for a walk, try to get some time lapses on the balcony here before sunset and during the day as much as I can, and just just trying to stay out of the thick of it. Obviously, with asthma, I want to stay away from any thought of the coronavirus or all of this crazy stuff that's going around. And you know what? When you have the first couple of cases, you're kind of like, wow, this is crazy. I don't think people should panic. I definitely do not think we should be hoarding, because everybody, if you talk about socialism, those of you who are into socialism, I personally am not. I'm more of a free market kind of guy, but I think that there is room for a certain amount of socialism. If you're into socialism, then you need to make room at the supermarket for everybody. So I personally feel that there should be quotas on the amount of toilet paper you could buy, at least for now. And there should be quotas on the amount of rubbing alcohol and hand sanitizer and soap that you could buy, so that everybody can get their share. So that being said, I just want to make that clear about that video that I put out. That was my first reaction, and I did not mean to belittle anyone at all or make fun of anyone whatsoever. So please don't think that at all. In fact, I was just extremely surprised to see that many people there on a Thursday night when I'm doing my regular grocery shopping. Someone also put out a comment that said, you're acting like an elitist. You're talking about toilet paper, and you're talking about people overbuying toilet paper, but you're buying wipes. Well, those are adult wipes. and those are flushable adult wipes that I always buy because those of you who are wiping with toilet paper, you're walking around with dirty asses. Unfortunately, that's true because toilet paper never gets off the full extent. And if you're lucky enough, like one of my friends, Tim from New Jersey, who has a bidet freshly installed in his house, then kudos to you, cheers. But if you're not lucky enough to have a bidet in your house, then you know, you got to go with the wipes. And nothing's wrong with a good shower too. After a good old number two caresses your rear end like a soft sponge of evacuation. So yeah, and if those of you who are watching this later on, timestamp what I just said. So Scary Stories 3. It's a Tuesday night. I don't usually go live on Tuesday, so I'm not expecting a lot of people, but there you go. So we can see, actually, let me do this on the other, let me flip the camera here so we can scroll through this amazing Stephen Gammell artwork. That kind of looks like a wishy or a weed that you would see outside. Obviously dripping blood, and then you see kind of this monster figure here, and other music, other books by Alvin Schwartz, and then you can see just again just this amazing artwork, kind of evocative of those masks that people would wear, those kind of masquerade masks, or even the plague masks that doctors would wear in the olden times. Got this incredible tree stump here, this tree trunk. Excuse me. More Scary Stories 3, more tales to chill your bones, and very famous scholastic drawings. So there you go. All right, we're gonna start off here. As always, the book, actually no, there's more Stephen Gammell artwork here that I just want to showcase. Just beautiful and amazing artwork. And this book is written out off to Justin. So here we go. All right, the same thing as all three of the books. It's divided into different sections, and the preface of this book is called Boo Men. So the more scary stories was hoo-has, and this one is called Boo Men. And I'm hoping to read at least the first 3 sections of this book. And it kind of relieves some of the pressure that nobody is here yet, or at least no one has announced themselves. And again, before we get to that chapter, just keep coming past the beautiful artwork by Stephen Gammell in this book. Just amazing artwork here. You can see they really went all out in this 3rd and final tome of this book. All right, so sit back, relax, and try to have a fun scare, or just revel, just go back into this time capsule, into this time machine like Doc Brown, cheers to the LA Beast, that these books are for me, just delving back into my childhood and having that recollection. I just love those books. Boo Men. The girl was late getting home for supper, so she took a shortcut through the cemetery. But oh, it made her nervous. When she saw another girl ahead of her, she hurried to catch up. "Do you mind if I walk with you?" she asked. Walking through the cemetery at night scares me." "I know what you mean," the other girl said. "I used to feel that way myself when I was alive." There are all sorts of things that scare us. The dead scare us. For one day, the dead scare us. For one day, we will be dead like they are. The dark scares us, for we don't know what is waiting in the dark. At night, the sound of leaves rustling, or branches groaning, or someone whispering makes us uneasy. So do footsteps coming closer. So do strange figures we think we see in the shadows. A human, maybe? Or a big animal? Or some horrible thing we can barely make out. People call these creatures we think we see Boomen. We imagine them, they say. But now and then, the Booman turns out to be real. Queer happenings scare us too. We hear of a boy or a girl. Keep in mind, this book was written in the 80s. Queer is not used in any negative context. I have much love and respect to everyone, no matter what your sexual orientation is, no matter what gender you consider yourself to be. Much love and respect to each and every one of you. This book was written in the 80s at a time when queer could still be used without raising eyebrows. Queer happenings scare us too. We hear of a boy or a girl who was raised by an animal, a human being like us who yelps and howls and runs on all fours. The thought of it makes our flesh crawl. We hear of insects that make their nests in a person's body, or of a nightmare that comes true, and we shudder. Ugh. If such things really do happen, then they could happen to us. It is from such fears that scary stories grow. This is the third book of such stories I have collected. I learned some of them from people I met. I found others, tales that had been written down in folklore archives and in libraries. As we always do with tales we learn, I have told them in my own way. Dave Macias, great to see you, YouTube brother. Hope you're having a great week. Hope your week is off to a great start. And grab yourself some corn juice or some grape juice. Have a seat and relax, and let's get into some scary stories. I hope everything's going well. I hope you're healthy, safe, as far away from danger as you possibly can be, my friend. Some stories in this book have been told only in recent times, but others have been part of our folklore for as long as we know. As one person told another, the details may have changed, but the story itself has not, for what once frightened people still frightens them. I thought at first that one of these stories I found was a modern story. It is the one I call The Bus Stop. I then discovered that a similar story had been told 2,000 years earlier in ancient Rome. But the young woman involved was named Philinion, not Joanna. Excuse me, scary story, Burke. Not Joanna as she is in our story. So imagine 2,000 years ago in ancient Rome, they were telling similar scary stories. So it's incredible how far these stories have gone and how much these stories have stuck with us. Are the stories in this book true? The one I call The Trouble is true. I can't be sure about the others. Most may have at least a little truth, for strange things sometimes happen, and people love to tell about them and turn them into even better stories. Nowadays, most people say that they don't believe in ghosts and queer happenings and such, yet they still fear the dead and the dark, and they still see boomen waiting in the shadows, and they still tell scary stories, just as people always have. Alvin Schwartz, Princeton, New Jersey. And I got my buddies, my anti-boomen buddies here to keep me safe from any strange happenings. And for those of you who might like to know, Esnam is with her mommy, so she will not be exposed to these scary stories, which for now she's a little bit too young for. She's not too young for In a Dark, Dark Room. Cheers, Dave. Not too young for In a Dark, Dark Room, which was made for little kids, but definitely a little bit too young, about 4 or 5 years too young for this book. Esnam is. When death arrives, it's usually the end of the story. But in these stories, it's only the beginning. Ooh, I like that. Thanks, Dave. All right, so here we go. Artwork by Stephen Gamble. And then you see the death with his sickle beckoning to this truck. So this story is called The Appointment. A 16-year-old boy worked on his grandfather's horse farm. One morning, he drove a pickup into town on an errand. While he was walking along the main street, he saw death. Death beckoned him. The boy drove back to the farm as fast as he could and told his grandfather what had happened. "Give me the truck," he begged. "I'll go to the city. He'll never find me there." His grandfather gave him the truck and the boy sped away. After he left, his grandfather went into town looking for Death. When he found him, he asked, "Why did you frighten my grandson that way? He's only 16. He's too young to die." "I am sorry about that," Death said. "I did not mean to beckon him, but I was surprised to see him here. You see, I have an appointment with him this afternoon in the city." Ooh. Ooh. So he wasn't exactly at the right time, but he had planned to meet him later on. So crazy story. The bus stop. There we go. And you can kind of see under here, it kind of looks like a face in the same vein as Boomen, the bus stop. So we got a good old Ed Cox, of no sexual connotation whatsoever. Ed Cox was, okay, let me start that over. I gotta be serious. The bus stop. Ed Cox was driving home from work in a rainstorm. While he waited for a traffic light to change, he saw a young woman standing alone at the bus stop. She had no umbrella and was soaking wet. Are you going toward Farmingtown?" he called. "Yes, I am," she said. "Would you like a ride home?" "I would," she said, and got in. "My name is Joanna, and 2,000 years ago in ancient Rome, it was Philemenion, I forget her name now, but go back about 10 minutes ago, and you'll see the name, because Alvin Schwartz is retelling this story in the bus stop, a story that was told 2,000 years ago in ancient Rome. "Would you like a ride home?" he said. "I would," she said, and got in. "My name is Joanna Finney. Thanks for rescuing me." "Hey, sweet Louisa, great to see you, YouTube sister." Strap yourself in. We're getting scary, baby. There's 3 of you here. Hit that like button, guys. The like button really does help in the algorithm, and we got ourselves some scary stories here. So this Louisa, sweet Louisa, if you didn't hear, was this very story, the bus stop, was told 2,000 years ago. All right, well, thank you. Dave, hit that like button, brother. And there's a third person here. Let us know who you are and hit that like button, please. All right. So he said, all right, so we're going to start that story over. Ed Cox was driving home from work in a rainstorm. While he waited for a traffic light to change, he saw a young woman standing alone at the bus stop. She had no umbrella and was soaking wet. "Are you going toward Farmingtown?" he called. "Yes, I am," she said. "Would you like a ride home?" "I would," she said, and got in. "My name is Joanna Finney. Thank you for rescuing me. I'm Ed Cox, of no sexual connotation whatsoever, in a story where a man picks up a woman on the side of the road." He said, "You're welcome." On the way, they talked and talked. She told him about her family and her job and where she had gone to school, and he told her about himself. By the time they got to her house, the rain had stopped. "I'm glad it rained," Ed said. "Would you like to go out tomorrow after work?" "I'd love to," Joanna said. She asked him to meet her at the bus stop, since it was near her office. They had such a good time, they went out many times after that. Always they would meet at the bus stop, and off they would go. Ed liked her more and more each time he saw her. But one night, when they had a date to go out, Joanna did not appear. Ed waited at the bus stop for almost an hour. Maybe something's wrong, he thought, and he drove to her house in Farmington. An older woman came to the door. Sorry about that. I got a message on my phone, and I got shot out of the app. But here we go. An older woman came to the door. "I'm Ed Cox," he said. "Maybe Joanna told you about me. I had a date with her tonight. We were supposed to meet at the bus stop near her office, but she didn't show up. Is she all right?" The woman looked at him as if he had said something strange. "I am Joanna's mother," she said slowly. "Joanna isn't here now, but why don't you come in?" Ed pointed to a picture on the mantel. "That looks just like her," he said. "It did once," her mother replied. "But that picture was taken when she was your age, about 20 years ago. A few days later, she was waiting in the rain at that bus stop. A car hit her, and she was killed." So I can imagine that in ancient Rome, he would have said, "I got to get used to not touching my face. Got to get used to not touching my face." And yeah, so I can only imagine in ancient Rome that she was killed by something, a lion or a cart that was driving by, or maybe a rock fell over on her or something. Somehow she was killed. But that would be so interesting to see how they told that story in ancient Rome. For those of you who didn't hear me read the preface to this book, that's the story that Alvin Schwartz says that was being told in ancient Rome 2,000 years ago. More scary story burps. Excuse me. All right, so this one is faster and faster. A drum. Sam and his cousin Bob went walking in the woods. The only sounds were leaves rustling and now and again a bird chirping. "It's so quiet here," Bob whispered, but that soon changed. After a few minutes, the two boys started whooping and hollering and chasing one another around. Sam ducked behind a tree. When Bob came by, Sam jumped out at him. Then Bob raced ahead and hid behind a bush. When he looked down, there at his feet was an old drum. "Sam, see what I found," he called. "It looks like a tom-tom. I bet it's 100 years old." "Look at the red stains on it," Sam said. "I bet it's somebody's blood. Let's get out of here." But Bob could not resist trying the drum. He sat on the ground and held it between his legs. He beat on it with one hand and then the other. Slowly at first, then faster, almost as if he could not stop. Suddenly there were shouts in the woods and the sound of hoofbeats. A cloud of dust rose from behind a line of trees. Then men on horseback galloped toward them. "Bob, let's go!" Sam shouted. He began to run. "Hurry!" Bob dropped the drum and ran after him. Sam heard the twang of a bow firing an arrow. Then he heard Bob scream, "Ah!" When Sam turned, he saw Bob pitch forward, dead. But there was no arrow in his body, and there was no wound. And when the police searched, there were no men on horseback, and there were no hoofprints, and there was no drum. The only sounds were leaves rustling, and now and again, a bird chirping. If you divide this story into parts, I love it. You can see how it starts off quiet and kind of ominous in a way, but quiet. And then it ends exactly the same way it began. It comes full circle, and I love that. And in the middle, there's this paroxysm of energy and rushing. I just think that's a beautiful technique that, and I don't know the name of it, but a wonderful technique that Alvin Schwartz employed to relay us, recount this story. And then we have another story called Just Delicious. Cheers, sweet Louisa. If you are drinking your Colt 45, I'm drinking my Milwaukee Best, which may or may not be non-alcoholic corn juice made of yeast that has not turned into alcohol for all intents and purposes on YouTube. Just delicious. George Flint loved to eat. Each day at noon, he closed his camera shop for 2 hours and went home for a big lunch his wife Mina cooked for him All right, well, cheers. George was a bully, and Mina was a timid woman who did everything he asked because she was afraid of him. One day, on his way home for lunch one day, George stopped at a butcher shop and bought a pound of liver. He loved liver. He would have Mina cook it for dinner that night. Despite all his complaints about her, she was a very good cook. While George ate his lunch, Mina told him that a rich old woman in town had died. Her body was in the church next door. It was in an open coffin. Anyone who wanted to see her could. As usual, George was not interested in what Mina had to say. I gotta go back to work, he told her. After he left, Mina began to cook the liver. She added vegetables and spices and simmered it all afternoon, just the way George liked it. When she thought it was done, she cut off a small piece and tasted it. It was delicious. The best she had ever made. She ate a second piece, and then a third. It was so good, she couldn't stop eating it. It was only when the liver was all gone that she thought of George. He would be coming home soon. What would he do when he found that she had eaten all of the liver? Some men would laugh, but not George. He would be angry and mean, and she did not want to face that again. But where could she get another piece of liver that late in the day? Where could she get another piece of liver that late in the day? Then she remembered the old woman lying in the church next door, waiting to be buried. And here's a picture of that old woman. At least her coffin, a la Stephen Gammell. There you go. And her hands kind of hanging out of the coffin in the void. In the void. So I see 4 of you here, guys. Louisa, hit the like button. Be like Lisa. Be like Louisa. Hit that like button. Get me up to the 4 likes because I see 4 people here, and we are honored and privileged that you would take time out of your weekday schedule, quarantine or no quarantine, to spend time with Daddy. Also, Philip of Daddy's still broadcasting. George said he never had a better. Oh, yeah. So when George got home that night, George said he had never had a better dinner. Have some liver, Mina, he said. It's just delicious. I'm not hungry, she said. You finish it, honey. That night, George had fallen asleep. Mina sat in bed trying to read, but all she could think about was what she had done. Then she thought she heard a woman's voice. Where's my liver? It asked. Who has it? Was it her imagination? Was she dreaming? Now the voice was closer. Where's my liver? It asked. Who has it? Mina wanted to run. No, she whispered. I don't have it. I don't have your liver. Now the voice was right next to her. Who has my liver? It asked. Who has it? Mina froze with terror. She pointed to George. He does! He has it! Suddenly, the lights went out, and George screamed and screamed. Ah! Ah! No, angry unicorn! Glenda, get out of here! Actually, Glenda's here to keep me safe. Brad, great to see you, brother. Hit that like button on the way in, and keep that like button going on the way out, brother. Hope you're doing great on Twitch. I don't know if you've gotten involved in TikTok these days. We have not yet, but there you go. I hope you don't have that lady's liver, Brad, and I hope none of you have that lady's liver. All right, so more of Stephen Gammell's amazing artwork as we keep going. Excuse me for the daddy snort. I have allergies and postnasal drip. I do not have anything that I should not have. Hello, Kate. Tom Connors was on his way to a dance in the next village. It was a long walk through the fields and woods, but it was a soft, sweet evening, and he loved dancing, so Tom didn't mind. He had gone only a short distance when he noticed a young woman following him. Maybe she's going to the dance, he thought, and he stopped and waited for her. As the woman got closer, he saw that it was Kate Faraday. They had danced together many times. He was about to call, "Hello, Kate," when suddenly he remembered Kate was dead. She had died last year. Yet there she was, all dressed up for the dance. Tom wanted to run, but somehow it didn't seem right to run from Kate. He turned and started to walk away as fast as he could, but Kate followed him. He took a shortcut across a field, but she still followed. When he got to the dance hall, she was right behind him. There were a lot of people standing outside, and Tom tried to lose Kate in the crowd. He worked his way to the side of the building, then squeezed up against the wall behind some people. But Kate followed. She came so close, she brushed up against him. Then she stopped and waited. He wanted to say, "Hello, Kate," just the way he did when she was alive. But he was so frightened he couldn't speak. Her eyes looked into his eyes, and then she vanished. No, I didn't. I'm still here. All right, 4 likes, baby. Woo! We'll take it. Thank you. So yeah, and the next story is called The Black Dog. Gemma, my Aspie sister, great to see you, YouTube sister. I was just thinking that people like us who have Asperger's syndrome, we were born for this, baby. We were born for the quarantine, and we were born for social distancing. So there you go. Even though, and I'm amazingly proud of my daughter. She's been doing a great job. Essenam sends you guys a big hug. Cheers with the corn juice. Milwaukee. Oh, I like the effect of that. Ooh, scary effect. Ooh. And they saw his reflection in the corn juice. And then all of a sudden, boom! Just kidding. Okay, the black dog. That's right. People with Asperger's syndrome, autistic people, were born for this. All right, well, keep on slicing that bologna. Enjoy the bologna. I remember eating bologna when I was a kid. My favorite lunch meat is salami, Genoa salami, or I think Hungarian salami. Salami from Hungarian. In French, they say salami hongrois. The black dog. It was 11 o'clock at night. Peter Rothberg was in bed on the second floor of the old house where he lived alone. It had gotten so chilly, he went downstairs to turn up the heat. I will, Dave. I definitely will. Thanks for that, brother. She misses you guys, and when she is old enough to make videos on her own or make videos with Daddy, you bet we'll be right back at it. But it all depends on her, what she wants to do later on. That being said, so he went downstairs to turn the heater on. As Peter was on his way back to bed, a black dog ran down the stairs. It passed him and disappeared into the darkness. "Where did you come from?" Peter said. He had never seen the dog before. He turned on all the lights and looked in every room. He could not find the dog anywhere. He went outside and brought in the 2 watchdogs he kept in the backyard, but they acted as if they were the only dogs in the house. The next night, again at 11 o'clock, Peter was in his bedroom. He heard what sounded like a dog walking around in the room above him. You know, like the sound of little claws clicking on the floor. Little, claws. Doggy nails. He dashed upstairs and threw open the door. The room was empty. He looked under the bed. He looked in the closet. Nothing. But when he got back to his bedroom, he heard a dog running down the stairs. It was the black dog. He tried to follow it, but again he could not find where it had gone. From then on, every night at 11, Peter heard the dog walking in the room above him. Sometimes the people upstairs, especially in the bedroom side of this apartment building kind of sound like rabid gorillas. Rabid gorillas. And Esanam, poor Esanam, last Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday, she got really scared. She's like, Dad, there's monsters upstairs. And I told her, honey, no, it's just the neighbors. But this house, this apartment building was built in the 50s, before people thought about insulation and soundproofing. So, yeah. But I have half a mind sometimes to go up there and tell them, hey, take your shoes off. And if they ever wake her up in the middle of the night, you bet I'm gonna go up there and politely ask them to please not do that and to give them a piece of my mind in a respectful manner. All right, so that being said, from dogs to rabid gorillas to scary stories. From then on, every night at 11, Peter heard the dog walking in the room above him. The room was always empty, but after he left, the dog would come out of hiding, run down the stairs, and disappear. One night, Peter's neighbor waited for him with him for the dog. At the usual time, they heard it above them. Then they heard it on the stairs. When they went out into the hall, it was standing at the foot of the stairs looking up at them. And this is Stephen Gammell's artist representation of said dog. Kind of the imprint on the wall. And there you see, I love that. I love that part of the artwork. So you see like the reflection here, but then you see this amazing kind of scary black dog. And it kind of looks like the size of the dog that you would expect to see. For some reason, just based on the way the story goes. The neighbor whistled, and the dog wagged its tail. Then it was gone. Things went on this way until the night Peter decided to bring his watchdogs into the house again. Maybe this time they would find the black dog and drive it away. Just before 11, he took them up to his bedroom, and he left the door open. Then he heard the black dog moving around above him. His dogs pricked their ears and ran to the door. Suddenly, they bared their teeth and snarled. Or maybe a unicorn. His dogs barked and snapped. They darted forward nervously, then backed away again. I sure will, sweet Louisa. You bet I will. And she remembers you guys, each and every one of you. I talk about Louisa, Dave, Bullmaster, Gemma, Brad. She remembers all you guys. Suddenly, one of them yelped. It began bleeding. Then dropped to the floor, its neck torn open. A minute later, it was dead. Peter's other dog backed into a corner, whimpering, and then everything was still. Well, thank you, Gemma. I definitely will. The next night, Peter's neighbor came back with a pistol. Again, they waited in his bedroom. At 11 o'clock, the black dog came down the stairs. As before, it looked up at them and wagged its tail. When they started toward it with the pistol, it growled and disappeared. That was the last Peter saw of the black dog. But it did not mean that the dog was gone. Now and then, always at 11, he heard it moving around above him. Once he heard it running down the stairs. He never managed to see it again, but he knew that it was there. And here is, moving on to the next story, some of the imagery that you could have seen in the scary movie that came out. And I saw, before all of this quarantine stuff was instated, I saw at a local bookstore here in Montreal where you could buy the three tomes of this book, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, with the movie that came out. So for those of you who are interested and you have access to any type of video streaming, 3-week lockdown, absolutely. Only essential services, Gemma? Is that what's going on? That's pretty much where we're at now. I mean, I've been working from home for a week and a half now. SNM is off school until May 1st. And it's pretty much, I hope we don't get to a state where we are like they're in Italy or Spain. I hear it's terrible over there. The people who are okay are really joining forces together and just making their balconies fun. And they have like an evening, but yeah, only essential services. And I'm on the vulnerable section of people. Yeah, absolutely, totally get that. I have asthma, so definitely have to be extremely careful. Don't touch your face, gosh darn it. No, I wash my hands on a regular basis. And another reason why being the daddy Tanner of YouTube, baby, I am fully prepared. I have my wipes. I don't have any now. Go figure. But I usually always carry a bottle of rubbing alcohol. You saw in our vlog when we went back down to New Jersey, I showed my arsenal to take care of Essenam. So I'm the daddy Tanner of YouTube, and I always keep some rubbing alcohol and stuff like that with me. But yeah, even at home, I always wash my hands. Essenam and Daddy, we always wash our hands on a regular basis when we come home from being outside. Because I know most people up until now just are not not always hygienic. Sometimes stuff happens, you don't have what you need to wash your hands, and you go about your daily life, and normally you don't have to worry about it. So partly because of Asperger's syndrome, and I want to do exactly the way I set out. Essenam and Daddy, we always wash our hands, and so it's not this type of stuff is not fully new to us. So yeah, there you go. So definitely only essential services. That's pretty much where we are here. There's only a couple thousand cases in Canada versus I think 43 and more cases in the States, and I think over 300,000 cases worldwide. Excuse me. And I don't mean that burp in any disrespectful way. It's just the beer. So there you go. Footsteps. Liz was doing, and this is actually, why do people tell scary stories? This is why people tell scary stories. Because of stuff like that goes around, and it's scary as hell, and we need to cope. We need to deal with it. Life is scary. Death is very real. Life is scary as hell. Crazy, scary shit happens. People try to cope with it, and this is why people tell scary stories, and they've been doing it for thousands of years, and scary storytelling in one way or another will not stop. Absolutely incredible. 5,226 cases. I firmly believe in numbers. Numbers don't lie unless you make them lie. The death rate for the coronavirus is extremely low. The complication rate for coronavirus is extremely low, but one of the scary things is that the reactions vary per person. One person might have no symptoms, another person might be extremely gravely ill, and it's so hard to tell. And one of the things I heard on New Jersey 101.5, which is key, we should definitely be testing more people. We're not testing enough people to really get a grasp on to really get the most out of the numbers that we need to get out of the numbers, and to really get a grasp on how to tackle this thing. But we're not going to be able to stay quarantined economically. It's impossible to keep this going forever. So at some point in time, we're going to have to go out into the world, be extremely careful, and hopefully, I think we can. I think our economies can kind of withstand this for a couple weeks or months. Dave, thank you for saying that, brother. And you know what? I have to tell you, you're on the front lines. You're on the front lines, brother. So kudos to Dave. Everyone say thank you to Dave, because he's out there on the front lines. While people like I can work from home, and my daughter doesn't have to go to school, Dave has to be there each and every day, kicking ass and taking names out there in the supermarket, and has no choice because that's his job, and that is an essential service. If I've ever seen one, I sure as hell am thankful to have dinner on my plate every single night. So Dave, thank you for your service, and thank you for each and every one of you who hasn't said anything, but you're doing your hard work and also kicking ass and taking names. And there's nothing wrong with being home, don't get me wrong, but to all the hospital workers, to all the police, doctors, firemen, all the people who have to be out there, thank you. And I mean that. And thank you for me, and thank you for my daughter, and thank you for everybody who's here. All right, footsteps. This is what you're here for. Liz was doing her homework at the dining room table. Her younger sister Sarah was asleep upstairs. Their mother was out, but she was expected back any time. When the front door opened and shut, Liz called, "Hello, Mama." But her mother didn't answer, and the footsteps Liz heard were heavier, like a man's. "Who's there?" she called. No one replied. She heard whoever it was walk through the living room, then up the stairs to the second floor. The footsteps moved from one bedroom to another. Again, Liz called, "Who's there?" The footsteps stopped. Then she thought, "Oh my God, Sarah is in her bedroom." She ran upstairs to Sarah's room, only Sarah was there, and she was asleep. Liz looked in the other rooms, but found no one. She went back down to the living room, scared out of her wits, like any of us would be. Soon she heard footsteps again. They were coming down the stairs into the living room. Now they went into the kitchen. Then the door between the kitchen and the dining room slowly began to open. "Get out!" screamed Liz. The door slowly closed. The footsteps moved out of the kitchen, through the living room, toward the front door. The door opened and shut. Liz ran to the window to see who it was. No one was in sight, nor were there any footprints in the fresh snow that had been falling. Rebecca, great to see you, YouTube sister. Yeah, it's me, Rebecca. I see a little bit of a name change there, and it's great to see you. I think your YouTube sister from another mother from England is here. Gemma, you are both from the same country, so partners in quarantine. I had to make my son give me back my new vacuum cleaner from the bathroom. I'm so pissed. I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing with you. I don't get it. I had to make my son give me back my new vacuum cleaner from the bathroom. Was he using the bathroom cleaner in the bathroom? America, sorry Rebecca, please excuse me. Then you're my sister from another mother. Either way, you got it. Well, I'm gonna remember this stuff. So yeah, I don't get why he had the vacuum cleaner in the bathroom. Or maybe it's the vacuum cleaner. Thanks, Rebecca. Maybe it's a vacuum cleaner you use. Maybe it's a vacuum cleaner you use to clean the bathroom. Can you edify us and there's no reason for it to be in there with him. Gotcha. Okay. So there you go. There is no I don't think if there's no carpet in the bathroom, I definitely don't think that there's a reason for it to be there. So Luisa, I'm glad you got your vacuum back. All right. So this one here. This is artwork by Stephen Gamble. And for those of you, and this story is aptly named like Cat's Eyes. For those of you who don't know, I've been borrowing these books for free through archive.org. You can borrow up to 5 books for free for up to 14 days. And these are books that normally, I would not have a lot of access to. I would not like to see that in the hallway at night. No, I sure wouldn't either. I don't think any of us would. Hopefully we never do. I don't believe in ghosts or anything like that. But yeah, there's definitely stuff that goes bump in the night and is kind of scary sometimes. So, like Cat's Eyes. As Jim Brand lay dying, his wife left him with his nurse and went into the next room to rest. She sat in the dark, staring into the night. Suddenly, Mrs. Brand saw headlights coming rapidly into the driveway. "Oh no," she thought. "I don't want visitors now. Not now." But it wasn't a car bringing a visitor. It was an old hearse with maybe half a dozen small men hanging from the sides. At least, that's what it looked like. Oh, I hear ya. I'm sure he gives you a whole symphony, Rebecca. I always call it Daddy's Symphony when Esnam says she heard me snoring in the other room at night. The hearse screeched to a stop. The men jumped off and stared at her, their eyes glowing with a soft yellow like cat's eyes. She watched with horror as they disappeared into the house. An instant later, they were back lifting something into the hearse. Then they drove off at high speed, wheels squealing, the gravel in the driveway flying in all directions. That's right, Daddy's Symphony, baby. Woo! As I hold my precious teddy bear in the middle of the night. At that moment, the nurse came in to say that Jim Brand had died. He's being low down and dirty, acting, cussing at folks in the home because he thinks he has the right to verbally, well, if your son is watching right now, young man, you better listen to Louisa Lewis. I heard she's got a mean belt. Just kidding. But on a serious note, listen to your mama, boy. Listen to your mama. Can't be cussing in the house, especially if everybody's stuck in the house and has got to be there. Much respect to your son, though. Much love and respect to all of you. But yeah, definitely can't be low down, dirty, cussing at folks and saying stuff like that. If we still had our videos available, we should make him watch some of Esnam's videos, and she could take lessons from him, and he could take lessons from her. I mean, as I drink my corn juice, cheers to each and every one of you. All right, so the next section of this story of this book is called On the Edge, and you're welcome. I forget what for, but you're welcome, Dave. Excuse me for the daddy snorts. You will say that these stories could not happen, yet some say they did happen. Bess. John Nicholas raised horses, which are my favorite animal. He had many horses of all kinds, but his favorite was Bess, a gentle old mare he had grown up with. He no longer rode her, for all she could do now was just amble along. Bess spent her days grazing peacefully in a meadow. That summer, for the fun of it, John Nicholas went into a fortune-teller's booth. The fortune-teller studied her cards. "I see danger ahead for you," she said. Your favorite horse will cause you to die. I don't know when, but it will happen. It's in the cards." John Nicholas laughed. The idea that Bess would cause his death was nonsense. She was as dangerous as a bowl of soup. But you can spill a bowl of soup on your lap and burn it. Yet from then on, whenever he saw her, he remembered the fortune-teller's warning. That fall, a farmer from the other end of the county asked if he could have Bess. He had been thinking that the old horse would be perfect for his children to ride. "That's a good idea," John said. "It would be fun for them, and it would give Bess something to do." Later, John told his wife about it. "Now Bess won't kill me," he said, and they both laughed. A few months later, he saw the farmer who had taken her. "How's my Bess?" he asked. "Oh, she was fine for a while," the farmer said. "The children loved her. Then she got sick, and I had to shoot her to put her out of her misery. It was a shame." Despite himself, John breathed a sigh of relief. He had often wandered in some crazy way through some strange accident. Bess would kill him. Now, of course, she could not. "I'd like to see her," said John, "just to say goodbye. She was my favorite." The bones of the dead horse were in a far corner of the man's farm. John kneeled down and patted Bess's sun-bleached skull. Just then, a rattlesnake, which had made its home inside the skull, sank its fangs into John Nicholas's arm and killed him. And here we see Stephen Gammell's rendition of Bess. What does Bess look like? Her bones in the corner of the barn where a rattlesnake made its home. And that, as per this story, is how Bess actually ended up killing John Nicholas. Unfortunate accident, really. And this here, this next story is one of my favorites from the books here, but they also featured Harold in the movie, in the 2019 movie, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which I was saying earlier, all of you should watch. I really want to, I got to rent this movie since we're all in quarantine. But for me, it's kind of business as usual. I'm still working, still doing YouTube, still taking care of S&M. I don't have all the time on my hands to watch movies and stuff like that, but S&M and Daddy kind of want to rent Frozen 1 or Frozen 2. As you guys remember the vlog back from November, early November, when the first week that Frozen 2 had just come out, we saw it on that first weekend. I digress, however. Harold was featured in the book, in the movie, which was very loosely based on Scary Stories. On these three books that I've been reading, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. So we've often wondered about scarecrows. Do we see them moving? Do they come off of their stalk, off of their stake, and try to walk around in the middle of the night? We'll find out. Harold. When it got hot in the valley, Thomas and Alfred drove their cows up to a cool green pasture in the mountains to graze. Usually they stayed there with the cows for 2 months. Then they brought them down to the valley again. The work was easy enough, but oh, it was boring. All the day the two men tended their cows. At night, they went back into a tiny hut where they lived. They ate supper and worked in the garden and went to sleep. It was always the same. Then Thomas had an idea that changed everything. "Let's make a doll the size of a man," he said. "It would be fun to make, and we could put it in the garden to scare away the birds." "It should look like Harold," Alfred said. Harold was an old farmer they both hated. They made the doll out of old sacks stuffed with straw. They gave it a pointy nose like Harold's and tiny eyes like his. Then they added dark hair and a twisted frown. Of course, they also gave it Harold's name. Each morning, before I move on, I want to show you the picture here on this page. There we go. So you see the guys tending their cows and in this artwork here. All right. So each morning on their way to pasture, Each morning on their way to the pasture, they tied Harold to a pole in the garden to scare away the birds. Each night, they brought him inside so that he wouldn't get ruined if it rained. When they were feeling playful, they would talk to him. One of them might say, "How are the vegetables growing today, Harold?" Then the other, making believe he was Harold, would answer in a crazy voice, "Very slowly." They would both laugh, but not Harold. Whenever something went wrong, they took it out on Harold. They would curse at him, even kick him or punch him. Sometimes one of them would take the food they were eating, which they were both sick of, and smear it on the doll's face. "How do you like the stew, Harold?" he would ask. Or, "How do you like that stew, Harold?" he would ask. "Well, you'd better eat it, or else." And then the two men would howl with laughter. One night, after Thomas had wiped Harold's face with food, Harold grunted. "Did you hear that?" Alfred asked. "It was Harold," Thomas said. "I was watching him when it happened. I can't believe it." "How could he grunt?" Alfred asked. "He's just a sack of straw. It's not possible." "Let's throw him in the fire," said Thomas, "and that will be that." "Let's not do anything stupid," said Alfred. "We don't know what's going on. When we move the cows down, we'll leave him behind. For now, let's just keep an eye on him." So they left Harold sitting in the corner of the hut. They didn't talk to him or take him outside anymore. Now and then the doll grunted, but that was all. After a few days, they decided there was nothing to be afraid of. Maybe mouse or some insects had gotten inside Harold and were making the sounds. Could be. So Thomas and Alfred went back to their old ways. Each morning they put Harold out in the garden, and each night they brought him back into the hut. When they felt playful, they joked with him. When they felt mean, they treated him as badly as ever. Then one night, Alfred noticed something that frightened him. Harold was growing. I was thinking the same thing, Thomas said. Maybe it's just our imagination, Alfred replied. We've been up here on the mountain too long. The next morning, while they were eating, Harold stood up and walked out of the hut. He climbed up on the roof and trotted back and forth like a horse on its hind legs. Excuse me. All day and all night, he... Excuse me. Post-nasal drip from allergies, nothing else. Cheers. All day and all night long, he trotted like that. In the morning, Harold climbed down and stood in a far corner of the pasture. The men had no idea what he would do next. They were afraid, and rightfully so. They decided to take the cows down into the valley that same day. When they left, Harold was nowhere in sight. They felt as if they had escaped a great danger and began joking and singing. But when they had gone only a mile or two, they realized they had forgotten to bring the milking stools. Neither one wanted to go back for them, but the stools would cost a lot to replace. There really is nothing to be afraid of, they told one another. After all, what could a doll do? They drew straws to see which one would go back. It was Thomas. I'll catch up with you, he said, and Alfred walked on toward the valley. When Alfred came to a rise in the path, he looked back for Thomas. He did not see him anywhere, but he did see Harold. The doll was on the roof of the hut again. Alfred watched. Harold kneeled down and stretched out a bloody skin to dry in the sun. Excuse me. There you go. So Harold was ever so real, and again, the movie had nothing to do with this story. It's a very loose. The movie was a very, very loose adaptation of these characters, basically kind of pulled from these books and used in order to make a storyline out of it. But if you ever have a chance to see the movie Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, let me know how it goes, because I want to watch it too. All right, The Dead Hand. Let me see how far along are we? Where are we at? Let's see here. Okay, well, we're gonna finish. We're gonna do The Dead Hand, and then we're gonna stop it there because this is a long story anyway. And we've been going for a little over an hour. I gotta work tomorrow, and I want to drink some water and do what a daddy does, getting ready for bed and just kind of wind down the day after this. The Dead Hand. The village huddled on the edge of a vast swamp. As far as one could see, there were soggy meadows, holes filled with black water, and glistening sheets of wet, spongy peat. Skeletons of giant trees, snags, the people called them, rose up out of the muck, their dead branches reaching out like long, twisted arms. During the day, the men in the village cut the peat and hauled it home to dry and sell for fuel. But when the sun went down and the wind, sighing and moaning, came in from the sea, the men were quick to leave. Strange creatures took over the swamp at night, and some even came into the village. That's what everyone said, and I love it when when Alvin Schwartz adds just that little bit. That's what everyone said, or so they said. It really kind of adds to it that kind of doubt. Could this have really happened? Maybe, no. I really like that. People were so afraid they would not go out alone in the dark. Young Tom Pattison was the only person in the village who did not believe in these creatures. On his way home from work, he'd whisper to his friends, "There's one." And they would jump and run, and Tom would laugh and laugh. Finally, some of his friends turned on him. "If you know so much," they said, "go back into the swamp some night and see what comes of it." "I'll do that," said Tom. "I work out there every day. Not once have I ever seen anything to frighten me. Why should it be any different tonight? Any different at night? Tomorrow night, I'll take my lantern and walk out into the willow snag. If I get scared and run, I'll never make fun of you again." The next night, the men went to Tom Pattison's house to see him on his way. Thick clouds covered the moon. It was the blackest of nights. When they arrived, Tom's mother was pleading him not to go. "It'll be all right," he said. "There's nothing to be afraid of. Don't be foolish like the rest, Ma." He took his lantern and, singing to himself, headed down the spongy path toward the willow snag. Some of the young men wondered if Tom wasn't right. Maybe they were afraid of things that did not exist. A few decided to follow him and see for themselves, but they stayed far behind in case he ran into trouble. They were sure they saw dark shapes moving about, but Tom's lantern kept bobbing up and down, and Tom's songs kept floating back to them, and nothing happened. Finally, they caught sight of the willow snag. I guess this is a place where a willow tree grows and its roots maybe are coming out of the ground. I'm not sure what a willow snag looks like. Where was I? Oh yeah. I kind of lost my spot there. Tom song. Yeah, okay. Finally, they caught sight of the willow snag. There was Tom standing in a circle of light, looking this way and that. All of a sudden, the wind blew out his lantern, and Tom stopped singing. The men stood stock still in the blackness, waiting for something awful to happen. The clouds shifted and the moon came out. There was Tom again, only now he had his back pushed up against the willow snag, and he had his arms out in front of him as if he were fighting something off. From where the men stood, it looked like dark shapes were swirling in around him. Then the clouds covered the moon again. Once more, it was pitch black. When the moon came out again, Tom was hanging onto the willow snag with one arm. His other arm was stretched out in front of him, as if something was pulling it. It looked to the men as if a rotting, moldy hand with no arm, a dead hand, had grabbed Tom's hand. And I'm going to show you this picture here because it's amazing. Again, before I continue reading the story. So you see kind of in the swamps, this is what he looked like. I guess a willow snag is kind of a stumpy tree trunk or something growing out of the, I'm not sure what it is really, but I will look it up so I can show you and tell you. With one final wrench, whatever had hold of Tom jerked him into the muck. That's what the men said. When the clouds blotted out the moon once more, the men turned and ran through the blackness toward the village. Again and again they lost the path and fell into the muck and water holes. In the end, they crawled back on their hands and knees, but Tom Pattison was not with them. In the morning, the people searched everywhere for Tom. Finally, they gave him up for lost. A few weeks later, toward evening, the villagers heard a cry. It was Tom's mother. She was rushing down the path from the swamp, shouting and waving. When she was sure the villagers had spotted her, she turned and ran back. Off they went after her. They found young Tom Pattison by the willow snag, groaning and gibbering as if he had lost his mind. He kept pointing with one hand at something only he could see. Where his other hand had been, there was nothing but a ragged stump oozing blood. The hand had been ripped clean off. Everybody said it was the dead hand that had done it, but nobody really knows. Nobody will ever know, except Tom Pattison. And he never spoke another word again. So the boy was lucky to survive, that's for sure. We're going to leave it at page, just so I can remember, page 38. And the next story is called Such Things Happen. Such Things Happen. Very creepy, Luisa. Very creepy. Let me see if I can look up just real quick before we end this a picture of a willow snag. And just to show you, actually, no, I don't want to lose my page here. I will probably go live reading this story on actually Thursday. I'm not sure. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm not sure the next time I'm going to go live. It might actually be Sunday night because I'm going to have SNM with me from Thursday night. It's Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Excuse me. Corn juice burp. So yeah, so let's see, willow snag here. Willow snag. Picture. What does a willow snag look like? Excuse me. Okay, let's see. Okay, so it was kind of like I was thinking. So here you guys go. What does a willow snag look like? There you go. This is actually a better image. So yeah, it's kind of like stump and roots kind of growing out of the ground. And there, here's kind of a picture, another picture kind of somebody else put up and called it a willow snag. So yeah, it's kind of like a tree stump or like a hollowed out tree stump with the roots that are kind of, you know, the soil's eroded around it and it's kind of growing. So there you go. Those are the scary stories for tonight. We're gonna end it there. We're gonna do the second and final chapter of these scary stories. Probably Sunday night around the same time as usual, which is Scary Story Hour, around 8:30 p.m. What are we doing, guys? What's going on? Well, I made up a funny video about how we're handling quarantine. And SNM threw some slime that we made at the ceiling, and I was on the phone, and the slime starts dripping down, and we have just different fun and things that we can do to kind of handle the quarantine. I've been wanting to make some more serious videos because there has been a lot of changes personally. In general, some of the changes were wanted, some of the changes were not, obviously. And I just want to kind of give you guys, because I've been joking around a lot in the videos, and people could have misconstrued what my thoughts were about the whole shopping incident with my COVID-19 crazy shopping experience from 2 weeks ago. I absolutely meant no ill will and no judgment towards anybody. I just wanted to show how crazy. Oh yeah, me neither, Luisa. I can't wait either. I'll tell you. The sooner this is over with, the better. For each and every one of us. Excuse me, that was a little baby burp. But yeah, so I did not, I really was just amazed at that, to see that crazy experience, and to see from one day to the next. Like 1 week I did my shopping, it was perfectly normal, no problem. A week later, and you kind of throughout the day at work, people were talking about more and more. They're talking about this, they're talking about quarantine, they're talking about closing things down, they're talking about, and then lo and behold, I go shopping that same night, and all they're talking about on the news is the virus, the virus, the virus. And then I see these at the shopping center, just full packed of people, and just what you see in that video is just my honest, amazed reaction. And do I think people should not go shopping during this type of situation? Absolutely not. You should go shopping, but you should just buy what you need and a little bit more, and leave some for the other people. I think that is a better form of socialism than a lot of the socialism we have nowadays. Just really thinking about your fellow man. I don't need 100 rolls of toilet paper. I don't need 100 rolls of hand sanitizer. By the way, with hand sanitizer, we're potentially making mutant forms of viruses and bacteria, because it only kills 99.99%, which is a very high percent, but you always have that little bit of a 0.01 that's left. So the only real true remedy is washing your hands with soap and water, say the ABCs or sing happy birthday, 30 seconds. I like what Casey Neistat does. Casey Neistat has a timer that he flips to count down the 30 seconds. So I've been thinking about if I can get my hands on a timer through Amazon.com, like a little sand timer, hourglass timer. I'm gonna get us one of those. Excuse the burping, but you guys are used to that here, so I think it's just commonplace. We can all burp together, all share our burps, farts, and quarantine stories, guys. So that being said, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna maybe film a couple of more serious videos. I've been really kind of want to document what it's like being quarantined for us, but there's some parts of the day I just can't show because I'm doing work. But just crazy news coming through each and every day, a million changes. All I can say, guys, is I love you. You got it, brother. David. So all I can say is I love you guys in a friendly, platonic, YouTube, brotherly, Canadian, American, and European kind of way. And I wish you guys absolutely nothing but the best. I truly do. You guys have been with us forever, since the beginning of Daddy Daughter Broadcasting, and now Daddy's Still Broadcasting, and just greatly appreciate it. Always great to see you guys. And we're going to keep plugging out the content. We're going to keep going live, so I'll see you Sunday. In the meantime, much love and respect. Please be safe. We can joke around, but obviously we need to take this seriously. There's a reason for it, because somehow, for some reason, not everybody reacts in the same way to this thing. And we got to be careful. So hopefully all these quarantine measures work. Hopefully it's not for nothing that we're doing this stuff, and just much love out to you, to Louisa, sweet Louisa from Memphis, Tennessee. And there you go. That's all we can do. Much love and respect, guys. Daddy's Still Broadcasting, signing off for now. Ciao, guys. And don't be scared tonight after all those scary stories. Just fun. Take it easy, guys. Ciao.